up, everybody? You know who it is. It is your allies behind enemy lines, Ryan and Joey, coming at you thoroughly behind enemy lines in Cowboys territory, holding it down for all our Washington football team fans out there. We come to you bringing the latest and greatest news all across the Washington football team, what's happening in and around the organization. Before we get things rolling, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you have that notification bell rung and the subscription bell smashed so that as soon as we drop the latest and greatest heat, you know what it is. You get notified and you can watch it immediately. And of course, you can also find us wherever you find your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're also on SoundCloud, all by searching Allies Behind Enemy Lines. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook at Allies BEL, at Allies Behind Enemy Lines on Facebook. So anywhere you are on social media, chances are we're there too. If you're listening to anything, I guarantee you we're right there with you. It is Monday, March, what's today, 29th. Joey, how was your weekend? How are things going? Everything still good over there?
Everything's going good. Great weekend. Had family in town, so always good to see that. And again, the speculation season is on.
Absolutely, absolutely. It sure is. So on Friday's show, we ended up dropping it a little bit early because we talked about the possibility of Adam Humphries signing. Well, he ended up signing. So to make sure that we weren't completely out of date, even though it happens from time to time, we went ahead and dropped that a little bit early. So that was a big bulk of what we mentioned and what we talked about on Friday's show was that this is a guy that played with Fitzpatrick in Tampa Bay. He had two of his best statistical years with Fitzpatrick in Tampa Bay. And now he adds a little more versatility, a little different, a little different, not scheme, but just a little different attack, that I guess we could have. He can catch the deep ball. He can play the slot really well. I said it on Friday's show that the easy and lazy comparison is the Wes Welker, the Julian Edelman, the Cole Beasley, all the short white guys that play the slot so well. I don't know if you can throw Cooper Kupp in there. Throw Cooper Kupp in there if you want. But like I said, and so because of that, kind of pinballing around here, I thought maybe Curtis Samuel might be that slot guy. Looks like maybe he'll be more of a number two. Then it's like, well, where does that leave Cam Sims? And so there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. There's still AGG, Antonio Gandy-Golden, still got Kelvin Harmon. Don't know what we're going to do with Steven Sims. Like, there's a ton of guys that we have right now at this wide receiver position. Only a few that Ron Rivera brought in. So you got to assume that those are probably guys that he's going to want to go with. That might give AGG kind of a leg up because Ron Rivera drafted him. It was a part of his draft class. So I guess we'll see there. But any thoughts or anything to add from Friday's show about this signing with Adam Humphries?
Well, I mean, it just as I said on that day, it cemented pretty much that we're going to have way more of a spread style offense in my mind, and that speed's going to be the key. And so when you got to think about players, you're looking at the draft, or in depth, or anyone in free agency, you're going to have to see players that fit that, the smaller, faster types, the ones that are going to do a lot of things with balls in their hands when they have it. So, when you said the Humphreys comparison, I like to say it more towards, somebody, the Super Bowl guy, or I should say NFC Championship guy, that Scotty Miller they have out there in Tampa Bay. I think that's someone that also can, catch the ball in the slot, but can also get that deep ball if need be and take the top off the defense as well. So, I mean, I think we got a great addition to this offense, and obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick had to have some say in that and the comfortable relationship he has with them, because I'm sure that was not a mere coincidence that he had his best season with Ryan Fitzpatrick there, and not 2 years later he's right back with him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's if you find success with the guy, you want to stick around with him and play with him again if you can. So kind of off of this what looks like a crowded wide receiver room, something that, like, I swear on my life I almost mentioned, like I literally almost did, was saying, hey, what if we changed, what if we kind of converted Cam Sims into just like maybe an undersized as far as size, like mass, to a tight end. Then we could kind of, put him. See, this is what stopped me from saying it. It was like, what's the difference of having him split out wide as a tight end or having him split out wide as wide receiver? Like, it's still just the guy, right? And he's probably not going to we're probably not going to put him up on the line a whole lot to have him block. So that's what stopped me from saying it. Well, now I say that this weekend they're saying that Washington's maybe looking at converting him to tight end. Maybe they do want to beef him up a little bit, put a little more size on him. But another guy that they mentioned was Kelvin Harmon, which I didn't think that he quite had the frame to maybe do that, which was kind of surprising. So I think Cam Sims is probably the leader in the clubhouse of somebody that they could do that to. And like I said, I almost mentioned it, but again, that's why the reason I stopped myself was because like, well, if he split out wide, he split out wide. Doesn't matter if he's a tight end or wide receiver. Like, what's the difference? So that's something that they might be doing to kind of skirt around the fact that they have a ton of people in this wide receiver room, and don't want to cut or release anybody. And maybe their options at tight end right now they just don't love. But what are your thoughts on that? On Cam Sims maybe transitioning to tight end?
Well, I mean, obviously we know the guy is versatile and he's going to do what the team wants him to do. He's not complete. I mean, he's not gigantic. Obviously, he's 6'5", but he's not beefy as we like to see tight ends are. But I mean, what is the true size of someone like Jimmy Graham? You know what I mean, or the the true weight, I should say. I think Cam Sims goes about 220, 225. And I think if you put I mean, I think you just put a bigger set of shoulder pads on him, he'll look like a bigger wide receiver. I think he has a smaller, more, those smaller wide receiver types. And I don't know how much more bigger he or undersized he is than Logan Thomas as well. It might be 10 to 15 pounds, but we know he's tough. We know he's strong. We know he can block, and we know he's going to do whatever's asked of him. So I think that if there is anybody that could make the transition probably pretty quickly, it's going to be him, just based upon all those factors above. So I wouldn't hate it. I mean, obviously we have somebody that we know does great things with the ball in his hand. The only question mark would be obviously blocking. And I think that hopefully he would be able to knock that out in preseason, in his couple games where they can see, he puts a body on them. And that's all you really need to do in this spread style offense. You're not talking, you're not talking about, the old hogs when it comes to faster guys. You're talking about that size of a tight end if you want to run this type of spread, quicker offense. So I think he would fit that mold perfectly.
So just for reference, and these are the only two guys that I could look up real quick while you were talking. Travis Kelce, he's 6'5", Cam Sims 6'5". You hit the nail on the head, 6'5", 220 for Cam Sims. Travis Kelce 6'5". How much do you think he weighs?
265.
260, yeah. And then I looked up Gronk. He's 6'6",
He's
and
bigger.
He's 265.
Yeah, I gotta say he's a little bit. He slimmed down later, but again, what you do with that weight is just too different. You know what I mean? It's just a different thing. You're not asking either of those guys. If you think about it, obviously they can block. Gronkowski has those blocks he had, I guess, in the highlights against pass rushers throughout the year. But they're not getting them every time. You're talking about guys that are just maybe checking a guy, giving their quarterback an extra second, or just diverting a guy if it's some kind of zone run. So you get down towards the line, you're probably talking about bringing in defensive linemen or linebackers, because he's not going to be that type of tight end. Even if you beef him up, I don't know if he's going to be how effective is he going to be in the pass game. So I don't know if he would even do it that much, but I would say if he can put on 10 to 15 pounds, a good 235, 240, I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Yeah, so a couple other guys I just looked up. Jimmy Graham, 6'7", 260, and Logan Thomas, 6'6", 250. So he's even kind of on the smaller side of those other guys. And so, like you said, even if Cam Sims could get up to 240, 20 pounds before the break of the season, that's going to be tough to do. You might need to start dabbling into the illegal substances, and hoping that he just doesn't have to catch a P test on the way to get put on 20 pounds in the next 6 months. Woo!
Bill Goldberg did it for the WWE, and he said he did two things. He did two things for 3 months. He said it took him 3 months, and he said he did two things: eating crap. All I did was eating crap. It made me sick. I remember that. I remember watching that, the interview with him, because he's always been in shape, Goldberg. But he wanted to look the big towards himself. How everyone remembered him from 20 years ago. Jeez, but in the interview they talked about, he's like, man, he literally wrote down his diet of what he ate every day, and it was almost like that Super Size Me movie where I was getting sick just thinking about having to consume that much food. And I'm like, man, somebody was like, man, you got to be dedicated. And when he said that, at the very end of it, he's like, yeah, all I did was eating crap. And I'm like, it sounds like you didn't have much else to do. But you're talking about, pizzas, a pizza with chicken breasts on it for breakfast. I'm like, dude, I can't even force myself to eat a pizza with chicken breasts on it for breakfast. And then he's all talking about yogurt with, peanut butter and peanuts, just constantly throughout the day from chicken breast. It's like, talking about, it was like every 2 hours. Every 2 hours, he was consuming this amount of protein or food, and I was like, man, at a certain point, I don't care how much you are, you're not going to be hungry, and you're forcing that stuff down there. So that just, you're not going to. I wouldn't be pressured to put on, maybe over the next year, put on 20,
Yeah.
25 pounds. But I would think if you're just on the incline and you're strong and positioning, positioning is almost everything when it comes to blocking somebody like that. And again, we're not going to be asking him to do those type of blocks. We're going to be asking him to do probably be pushing those blocks over to Logan Thomas in those situations. But I think it's somebody, a big body you can put in the line that can help slow down some pass rushers.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a very interesting thing because you would have thought if they would have thought about this, it would have been back in January, back in February, but obviously they didn't have the 10-year sign that he ended up signing within the last week or two. But that part kind of brings me to my mock draft. I don't have any official changes today. I know I've been tinkering. I know I told you guys I've been tinkering, and I have. But I just love my first two picks. I'm kind of really locked into him. I still think Christian Darrisaw is very likely for him to be there for us to grab. We'll talk about a couple things that could happen here in a few minutes. I'm really big fan of Dylan Moses. If Baron Browning's there, they're kind of interchangeable for me right now. Now, the point where this really takes me is that tight end spot, Brevin Jordan. I believe I had him in the third round out of Miami. He's kind of an undersized guy, too. So if we're going to be taking a tight end, I'd rather be taking like a tight end. You know what I mean? Similar to the fella that you have. What's the guy's name that you
Pat Fryermouth?
Yeah, out of Penn State.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brevin Jordan running 6'3", 245. So he has the girth, not really the height. So I think that's going to be a move on Friday's show that I think I'll kind of revisit, and that might change what I do later in the rounds as well, because we'll still be looking for that tight end, I think, in the draft. So just a little peek behind the curtain of what's going on with me and that mock draft and the tight end position as a whole, because we got to do something. Like you said, we haven't even signed Jeremy Sprinkle back yet. I don't know what we're going to do with Thaddeus Moss. You want to talk about an undersized guy? I mean, he's the undersized guy. And then one other, and obviously Logan Thomas. He's obviously still there, and he did a great job for us. So we just got to kind of, find somebody to fill in with him. But there's some free agent stuff that we've been looking at, and that's the possibility of bringing in Trey Boston as a free agent. I know you were excited about that, Joe. That was somebody that you had mentioned a couple times that you would like to sign. So I'm sure that news kind of excites you quite a bit.
Well, yeah, it's exciting because it's depth, But the thing I wanted to see if any of these guys can play free safety, because we're talking about having a lot of strong safeties on our team right now. If you talk about Cameron Crowe, who's a strong safety, you're talking about Landon Collins, who's a strong safety, and now you're talking about Trey Boston, who are all bona fide strong safeties. And then you're going to have we have on the other side of the field, we're going to have Jeremy Reeves. And I think that's the only one we have signed currently to the roster. So. Can he play? I mean, who's going to play free safety? I think if one of those guys could be versatile and play, I'd probably be Cameron Curl, I would think, to be the one that would probably be the one that would transition over. I can almost see a Landon Collins, Cameron Curl starting duo. And if we have Trey Boston and Jeremy Reeves backing them up, I mean, you can't ask for a better depth at safety position. So, I mean, that's kind of what excites me there, is just the big name. But the only question mark would be the versatility of who we're going to have on the field at the same time. But if they listen to this show and then they listen to what I'm trying to tell them to do, then we'd have no problems, I think, ever. So, but yeah, just back to real quick about what you said about the tight end, though. I mean, it's Pat Fryermouth. That's one of the things I loved about it was his size. And he comes from a place where big boys come from, and the tight end position, it's essential when you talk about those 3rd and 1s and those goal line situations that have plagued us over the years, the short yardage situations. So we definitely need somebody like that. But yeah, and as you brought up the mock draft as well, and it seems like things are changing. Those tackles are getting more, and that's why I do not see Christian Darrisaw still being there at number 19 now. I mean, they're getting more and more value now. That what's his name, Tavon Jenkins.
Tavon Jenkins. Yeah.
I think he was the one that was projected after Darrisaw, at like 27 or 28 when we first started doing these mock drafts. Now he's getting pushed down, into the 18, 19 range. So you can just see that. And what is happening as well, though, is a lot of these wide receivers are getting bumped up. Guys that were in the 2nd round are now in the 3rd round, as what I've been noticing as I've been doing my mock drafts. So that's, it looks like there's going to be a drafter's delight. You might be able to get a good round steal in the 2nd or 3rd round of wide receivers, But those offensive tackles, if you want one, you're going to have to take one super early. And so I don't know. Again, that's why the only thing that steers me off of keeping that offensive tackle out of that first pick, because you're at this point right now, we're going to be reaching if we draft an offensive tackle in the first round. In the first round.
Yeah, if it's not Darrisaw, I don't want him. Tevin Jenkins, he's projected to be a starting tackle, but they said he is going to take some work to get there. He's not necessarily a day one starter, but a guy that can learn pretty quickly. And I want somebody that can step in and get it done. So if it's not Darrisaw, we mentioned on Friday's show the other directions we'd like to go in the draft if it's a possibility. Now, speaking of the draft, obviously we saw some draft movement, some like we've never seen before.
In a while.
Yeah. On Friday, Miami, trades back to number 12 with San Francisco. They pick up a couple extra first-round picks, a couple third-round picks, and San Francisco jumps to that third spot. Got to assume they do it to take a quarterback. They come out and say Jimmy G's our guy. Jimmy G's here. He's our guy. Probably not going to happen. You don't trade up to your third. You don't trade up to the third pick and give away 2 first-round picks to keep your quarterback and get somebody else. And so Miami's sitting at 12. Well, then they jump up back to 6 and trade with Philadelphia, giving up one of those picks and a couple of those picks that they got in the San Francisco trade. And so, they move back a little bit, still get a first round for next year, I believe, either next year or 2023. And so, they felt like the guy they wanted at 3 would have been available there at 6. So that's why they were able to trade back and get back in. But the reason I bring all this up is because it still looks like we're looking at least 3, if not 4 quarterbacks in those top 4 to 6 range. Obviously, I know Miami's got that 6th pick. Bengals have the 5th pick. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion the Jets take Zach Wilson at the number 2 pick. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion yet. Until they trade out of that slot, or until Darnold's traded, like I said, I just don't think that it's a foregone conclusion. But anyway, either way, now that, like you said, those quarterbacks are slowly getting pushed up. Carolina is projected to make a move and trade up to try to get Justin Fields. And so listening to Tuesday's podcast, it's called First Mock or First Draft podcast with Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. They brought up the point of what if Washington traded up in front of New England to try to get Mac Jones. Like if he's slowly falling because all these quarterbacks get taken in the first 4 to 7 range, and then now you have the tackles and the wide receivers and the corners now all falling from 7 to that 14 range, where I believe that's where New England sits is 14 or 15.
14, I think it's 15.
Yeah, what's stopping Washington from moving up in front of them to try to get Mac Jones? And I'm just like, I don't know if that's the move that I'm willing to take for Mac Jones. There's 2 quarterbacks that I would want in this draft, like do or die, and that's Zach Wilson and that's Trevor Lawrence. I'm good on Justin Fields. I'm good on Trey Lance. I'm good on Mac Jones. If Mac Jones fell in our lap and we took him, I wouldn't hate the move, but to make the move for him, I wouldn't want. If we were able to trade back and he still fell in our lap, in that 23, 24 range, I'd be okay with that. But making a move for him, I just don't think is the smartest thing because we don't have the draft capital in this year's draft to do it. It's going to take more than just an extra 3rd-round pick. And going forward in next year or the year after that's draft, again, I don't want to be without that 1st-round pick for a guy that played 1 good year in college football.
He played 1 good year in college football. I mean, he's one of the hardest working guys in college football. He sat behind some great guys.
No doubt.
Sat beside some great guys with one of the best all-time coaches in college football. But at the same token, I just don't know if you have to jump anybody to go and get him. And then you start thinking about some of the things we've thrown out there, some of the people that we've liked, as far as picking up a quarterback further down the road in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. And you got guys like Kellen Mond. I'd rather take a chance on a guy like that in the 4th round than go after somebody like Mac Jones in the 1st round. I just think that
Mond possibly being gone in the 2nd round.
Well, I mean, that's as we get close, this is what happens. You know what I mean? As people get closer, these quarterbacks, they start going higher and higher and higher up the chain. I remember when Zach Wilson wasn't even in the 1st round. With the beginning of the season, like it slowly just changes and people start panicking, and that's why I know I know as we get closer to this draft night, a lot of these quarterbacks are going to be gone, in the top 10. We might have all 5 gone in the top 10. You never know.
Yeah.
And but just, to go along with your point is of all these moves, um, basically, San Francisco saying they want a quarterback, so that's probably 3 in the top 3 right there. You're talking about the Eagles trading out, and they might have done that out of sheer necessity of not being able to afford to pay somebody in the top 10 picks. They're like, we can't draft anybody, we can't pay them. We haven't even got under our salary cap yet. We can't even pay anybody this high yet. Maybe next year. And also just the availability of the position. I mean, it's they're probably still going to take, what they need is everything besides the quarterback, obviously. So where they go, that does not really matter. But as far as us, and the rumors coming out that we want to take a quarterback in the first round, then again, we're only talking about Mac Jones, unless you're talking about trading, into the top 10, which I would not do, chase after any of these guys. I mean, if the Jets, that second round pick is going to cost a ton. You're talking Carson Wentz, you're talking those old numbers to get, RG3 type numbers now to get that type of pick, which I wouldn't want to do either. So now again, you're talking about Mac Jones, or overshooting for someone like Kellen Mond in the first round. If he's already going up to the second, who's what to say in 2 weeks? Who's what to say in 2 weeks? If they start projecting Mac Jones at like 10 or 11, then I think who's the next quarterback on the list? I guess it differs.
Kyle Trask.
Kyle
Trask from Florida. Yeah.
And so again, people are going to decide, again, they'll start reaching. And don't follow the reach game. Don't, you do the opposite. That's when you start getting these bargain guys at 19, guys that should have been falling in the top 10 because these other teams are reaching. So again, if someone like that, Mac, again, I don't even want to take the chance on Mac Jones in the first round at 19. Like you said, if we trade back to 25, I probably still don't want to take a chance on him because I don't believe in him. I don't believe in him. I see someone like that. I see someone like Andy Dalton, or I see someone like Mitchell Trubisky. I see someone like that, or even like Ryan, or I want to say Josh McCown, that again, a hard-working quarterback, probably the hardest work. That's why he's been in the league for 17 freaking years, and that's why teams trust him because because he's a bad quarterback and makes terrible decisions, just because he works hard and he helps people around him. But what did he ever do? Do you want to have one of those guys on here? Do you want to be the guy that someone had to draft him and was disappointed in the beginning? We don't want to be the guys that did the same thing to draft him in the beginning. So I don't think that's our answer. And if we're looking for a quarterback in the first round, then you better. Again, you better be looking to trade away the future because there's nobody that's going to fall to us that's worth that pick.
Yeah, there's 2 guys right now that'd be willing to make a move for. That's Deshaun Watson, that's Sam Darnold, and that's about it. I think if we don't have our quarterback on our roster right now, then we're in more trouble than we think. Bringing in Fitz at $10 million for 1 year. Obviously, re-signing Taylor Heineke, which you couldn't let him walk after this performance that he did have against Tampa Bay. You had to at least see what you had with him, see what you got. And then Kyle Allen, he's buddies with Ron, so of course he was going to stick around. Him and Scott as well. But I'm all set at quarterback for this season. Again, we knew what the Fitzpatrick signing was. It was just them kicking the can down the road and saying, we'll get to it later. And so I think that's exactly what we need to do. Like I said, if Deshaun Watson becomes available somehow, whether via trade or he gets released, snatch him up. If Sam Darnold becomes available via trade, depending on the price tag, I'd absolutely be willing to make the move for him. But other than that, outside of that, we can either find somebody in the later rounds or just roll with what we have right now. And I think that's probably the better option, is the latter of the two, of just roll with what you got and see what you got, just play the cards that you have, play the cards you're dealt. That's all you can do.
And who knows? And who knows? This could be Ron's, reverse psychology, talk about that. And it's like, oh, they're looking for a quarterback. We're going to, maybe they'll be willing to deal that pick or something like that. Maybe we got to jump to Washington now. And so it just pushes another player that he wants that might be just out of our range right into our lap. So who knows what's going on behind the scenes? I know I would be doing stuff like that. Every time I try everything to get you looking this way and get you going that way, so I can one of these guys can land right in my lap. And I think that we're talking about guys like, again, Micah Parsons. You even mentioned one, the cornerbacks, which I really don't think we could, or again, a position to trade the pick for someone that really wants one of these guys that fall into our lap. So I don't really buy on this. I think that, like you said, signing the Fitzpatrick kind of put the seal on anything major happening for a quarterback. So if somebody falls into our lap, we'll see.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I mean, that's all I had on today's show. Did you have anything, Joe? Kind of a short, quick hitter. We have a little something fun planned on Thursday, or excuse me, on Friday's show. But as far as today goes, I mean, that was just kind of some wrap up, some news and notes from the weekend.
Exactly.
Any Friday news
Just
dump
how
and things
Monday
like
should
that.
be. Kind of get your mind going again of where we're at,
Yeah.
where we're going. And, and again, speculation season, the speculation. You got to give them what they want. You always got to sprinkle some of that speculation on them so that people can keep thinking about stuff. And so we're still thinking about it. So now are you, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like Papa Roach said, speculation, keep speculating.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Or that one kid that couldn't talk right said, speculation. I forgot his name.
All right, well that'll do it for us on today's on today's show. As always, again, make sure you check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast. Of course, check us out here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell, hit the subscription button. So again, as soon as this video drops and all future videos drop, you get a little notification right to your phone. You can open it, watch it, have a good time, and learn some things along the way. Maybe you can yell at your TV, or excuse me, yell at your TV, your computer screen, your phone screen, whatever you can, saying, "You blubbering idiots, you're wrong." Well, if that's the case, leave a comment, let us know. Or you can also
These
tell us we did a
blubbering
great
idiots
job.
are right
But,
sometimes. So don't always think the blubbering
a little
idiots are
bit,
going to
yeah,
be
we
wrong.
are. Agreed. But you know what they say: a broken clock is right twice a day too. So
Exactly.
it is what it is. But until Friday's show, again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on Friday. Enjoy the week.